you probably know there are many sects of Islam or many different schools of Islam, depending on the word you want to use. The main ones, of course, that most people know or are aware of at least, are the Shia as well as the Sunni traditions. There are many more. When you guys were in Istanbul, I don't know if you noticed, but very near to where we were living, there was the Mevlevi Hanesi, which is the house for the Mevlevis. Mevlevis were part of the Sufi tradition, which is a spiritual tradition. And all these are not exactly mutually exclusive. Sunni and Shia are, but there's a lot of Venn diagramming, the way that they intersect and they have shared beliefs or not shared beliefs. Another one that you'll find specifically in Oman is the Abedi tradition. And this is one that actually, in theory, predates both the Sunni and the Shia splitting. And they have very different ideas of theology, and that plays out in the art as well. But we don't have time to really talk too much about that. Before we talk about the 5 pillars here, before we need to talk about these 5 pillars here, which are the things that all Muslims everywhere, regardless of their sect or school, will believe in, which are specifically faith, prayer, charity, fasting, and pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is the one I already talked about, where you have to go to pilgrimage on the Hajj. You have to fast, specifically during the holy month of Ramadan. There are also some other specific times. And then prayer. These are the 5 prayers that you probably heard when you are living in Morocco, or if you were in Istanbul and you heard those: one at dawn, one at noon, one in the afternoon, one at sundown, and one in the evening, after sundown, right? And of course, there's the faith, which is usually proclaimed by one sentence, which is, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his prophet, or Muhammad is his messenger, or Muhammad is the messenger of God. And this is one way that one proves that one is a Muslim. Specifically, when you're asked to enter a mosque somewhere in the world, so in some places they do ask this, specifically, for instance, in the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, which is one of the most holy buildings in Islam. They ask you to recite this before going in. And of course, charity is a big part as well. So these are the 5 pillars of Islam. And you'll see these borne out in many, many different ways, in many different places. The story of Muhammad we won't really get into because we don't have that much time, but basically the story of pilgrimage and flight. There's a holy flight, which is the flight that he took from the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem into the heavens. There's lots of funny stories about how he bargained with God, and God wanted him to do like 40 prayers a day, and he bargained him down until he got down to 5 prayers a day, because he was taught by, as he ascended into the layers of heaven, he meets Moses and Abraham and Jesus and all these people, and then they tell him, you can't take that. You have to go back up and bargain again, right? But at any rate, a lot of that is depicted in miniatures, for instance, these Iranian miniatures, or also the building itself, Dome of the Rock, is extremely important. And this is also where a lot of the architecture from Islam evolves. Much of the architecture comes from his house, which we'll get to in a second. But also, you can see how the dome, the dome was added actually later by the Ottomans, and the gilding was also added later. This new dome, that is. But there's this wonderful ornamentation all around, with the Arabic inscriptions and the patterns, and the use of spolia, which specifically means things taken from other people. So they're reusing columns from other people. And this kind of use of what's already there, respect for other pre-existing people of the book, which are other people who also are Abrahamic religion, so the Jews and the Christians specifically, and perhaps the Baha'i later, we'll get to that possibly later. That is all combines into the architectural styles that characterize Islam. We don't have that much time to really talk about this building in depth, but suffice to say that this is extremely important. And very recently, if you will have seen in the news, the visit of an Israeli minister to the site has caused a lot of anger and controversy, specifically within Oman, because Oman, as you may remember from Geography Now, is seen as this sort of mediator country, where their ambassador can speak to both Israel and Iran. But now, because of this visit, they've taken a little bit of a harsher stance as well towards Israel.